Imagine being at the top of your game, beloved by millions, earning a fortune, and then throwing it all away with one spectacularly bad decision. It happens more often than you'd think. From racist tirades caught on camera to self-sabotaging contract negotiations that killed golden opportunities, some sitcom stars have made choices so bafflingly stupid that they destroyed careers worth millions in a matter of seconds. These weren't just mistakes, they were full-blown disasters that left everyone watching asking the same question. What were they thinking? Here are 13 shockingly stupid decisions by sitcom actors who should have known better. Charlie Sheen's winning meltdown. In March 2011, Charlie Sheen was the highest-paid actor on television, earning nearly $2 million per episode on 2.5 Men. Then he decided to publicly attack the show's creator, Chuck Lorre, calling him a turd and using anti-Semitic language in a radio interview with Alex Jones. But that was just the beginning. After being fired, Sheen launched a bizarre media blitz that included creating a webcast called Sheen's Corner and coining catchphrases like winning, tiger blood, warlock, and Adonis DNA. He claimed he was on a drug called Charlie Sheen and that he had tiger blood running through his veins. The whole episode was so surreal that it dominated social media for weeks, with Sheen gaining 1 million Twitter followers in just 25 hours. Years later, Sheen admitted the truth was far less glamorous. He revealed he had been using too much testosterone cream, which metabolized into what he called an accidental roid rage. He called the entire episode desperately juvenile and said he traded early retirement for a hashtag. Looking back, he acknowledged there were 55 different ways to handle the situation, but he chose number 56. The meltdown cost him his job on one of television's most successful shows and damaged his reputation for years to come. Roseanne Barr's racist tweet. In May 2018, Roseanne Barr was riding high on the success of her sitcom reboot. The new version of Roseanne had become an instant smash for ABC, with its premiere episode drawing more than 25 million viewers. The network had already ordered another season. Then Barr sent a tweet comparing Valerie Jarrett, a former advisor to President Barack Obama, to the offspring of the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes. The backlash was immediate and devastating. Within hours, consulting producer Wanda Sykes quit the show. Co-star Sarah Gilbert publicly condemned the tweet as abhorrent. Disney CEO Bob Iger personally called Jarrett to apologize. By the end of the day, ABC had canceled the show entirely despite its massive ratings and advertising revenue. Barr later claimed she didn't know Jarrett was African American and thought she was Middle Eastern, a defense that somehow made things worse since it implied she thought comparing Middle Eastern people to apes was acceptable. She blamed the tweet on taking Ambien, prompting the drug manufacturer to issue a statement clarifying that racism is not a known side effect of their medication. ABC eventually created a spin-off called The Conners without Barr, killing off her character with an opioid overdose. Barr received no financial involvement in the new show and watched as her former cast members continued without her, all because of 11 words she could never take back. Michael Richards' career-ending rant. Michael Richards built his entire career on playing the lovable Cosmo Kramer on Seinfeld, one of television's most beloved characters. 2 years after the show ended, he tried stand-up comedy at the Laugh Factory in Los Angeles. When an African-American audience member heckled him in October 2006, Richards completely lost control and unleashed a racist tirade that was captured on video. He repeatedly used the N-word and told the heckler that 50 years ago, they'd have you hanging upside down with a fork up your ass. The audience gasped in horror as Richards continued his rant, unable or unwilling to stop himself. The video quickly spread online, and Richards' reputation was destroyed overnight. He appeared on Late Show with David Letterman via satellite to apologize, but the damage was irreversible. The incident was so shocking because it seemed completely out of character for the man who had played such a quirky, harmless figure on television. Richards later appeared on Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee and admitted the moment still haunted him. He acknowledged that he said things that hurt people and that the incident revealed something ugly inside him that he didn't fully understand. His stand-up career never recovered, and his acting work dried up almost completely. Few people remember the Michael Richards show that bombed after 2 months, but almost everyone remembers the Laugh Factory incident that ended his career. Suzanne Somers' contract catastrophe. Suzanne Somers was one of the biggest stars on television as Chrissy Snow on Three's Company, a show that regularly drew more than 20 million viewers per episode. After 4 successful seasons, she went into contract negotiations in 1980, asking for a raise from $30,000 per episode to $150,000, matching her co-star John Ritter's salary plus 10% of the show's profits. The network flatly refused and made an example out of her. Instead of firing her immediately, they humiliated her for the rest of the season by reducing her appearances to just 60 seconds per episode, featuring her only in phone calls from her character's parents' house. A police guard would escort her through the back door to a separate set where she wasn't allowed to see anyone from the original show except the wardrobe person. She later recalled hearing her husband's slow footsteps coming up the stairs and knowing from the way he walked that she'd been fired. The network wanted to send a message to other actresses demanding raises, particularly after the women on Laverne and Shirley had successfully negotiated better pay earlier that year. According to Somers, not one woman asked for a raise on television for the next 8 years, with Roseanne Barr being the first to break that pattern. While Somers eventually built a successful business empire with The Thigh Master and later starred on Step by Step, her decision to go it alone instead of coordinating with co-star Joyce DeWitt cost her millions and years of her career. Tim Allen's cocaine trafficking. Before he became the family-friendly star of Home Improvement and the voice of Buzz Lightyear, Tim Allen was arrested at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport in October 1978 with over 650 grams of cocaine, about 1.4 pounds. This might have been just another drug bust, except Michigan had passed one of the harshest drug laws in the country just 1 month earlier. Anyone caught with 650 grams or more faced mandatory life in prison without parole. Allen was 25 years old and facing the possibility of never leaving prison. He made a deal with federal prosecutors, providing names and testimony that helped indict 20 people in the drug trade and resulted in convictions of 4 major dealers. In exchange for becoming an informant against nearly 24 of his peers, his sentence was reduced from life to 3 to 7 years, and he ended up serving just 2 years and 4 months. Allen has been open about how the experience changed his life, crediting the arrest with saving him from a path that would have killed him. But the decision to deal drugs in the first place, especially carrying such a large quantity at an airport just as the state implemented draconian sentencing laws, ranks as one of the most reckless choices any future sitcom star has ever made. Mclean Stevenson's MASH mistake. Mclean Stevenson played Colonel Henry Blake on MASH, one of television's most successful shows. But he grew frustrated that his character remained a supporting role while the show's ensemble cast shared the spotlight. Believing he deserved to be a leading man and convinced he could replicate MASH's success elsewhere, Stevenson decided to leave the hit series after 3 seasons. The producers gave his character a memorable and shocking death, having Blake's helicopter shot down on his way home from Korea. Then Stevenson's career collapsed. He starred in 4 different sitcoms in succession after leaving MASH: The Mclean Stevenson Show, Hello Larry, In the Beginning, and Condo. None lasted more than 2 seasons, and all were off the air before MASH concluded its run. Hello Larry became so notorious as a failure that it was frequently used as a punchline whenever someone made a bad career decision. TV Guide eventually ranked it number 12 on their list of the 50 worst shows of all time. Stevenson later admitted his mistake in an interview, saying he made the error of believing that people were enamored of Mclean Stevenson when the person they were enamored of was Henry Blake. He never got another significant acting role and spent the rest of his career as a cautionary tale about actors who overestimate their own importance. By the time MASH ended, Stevenson wasn't even a parallel failure, but just a pop culture trivia answer. Isaiah Washington's homophobic slur. Isaiah Washington seemed to have everything going for him as Dr. Preston Burke on Grey's Anatomy, one of television's hottest new shows. In October 2006, during an argument with co-star Patrick Dempsey on set, Washington used a homophobic slur while referring to co-star T.R. Knight. The incident might have been quietly resolved, but Washington made things exponentially worse at the Golden Globes in January 2007. When asked about the on-set argument during a press conference, Washington denied everything and repeated the slur again in front of reporters, saying he never called Knight that word. His castmates gasped, and Katherine Heigl later told reporters that Washington was way out of line. The network was furious, and despite Washington issuing apologies and attending counseling, ABC decided not to renew his contract in June 2007. Creator Shonda Rhimes later said the incident nearly killed the show and that cast members who were present remain traumatized by it to this day. Washington insisted for years that he had been treated unfairly and made a scapegoat, but repeating a slur at the Golden Globes while denying he ever said it ranks as one of the most bafflingly stupid public relations disasters in television history. He briefly appeared on Bionic Woman before that show was canceled, and while he eventually returned to Grey's Anatomy for a guest appearance years later, his career never recovered from a moment of anger he decided to double down on in the worst possible way. Katherine Heigl's Emmy fiasco. Katherine Heigl won an Emmy in 2007 for playing Izzy Stevens on Grey's Anatomy, beating out several of her co-stars. The following year, instead of simply not submitting herself for consideration if she felt the material wasn't up to par, Heigl decided to make a public statement about it. She announced she didn't feel she was given the material that season to warrant an Emmy nomination and didn't want to take away an opportunity from an actress who was given such materials. The statement was a direct criticism of the show's writers and creator Shonda Rhimes, and it blindsided everyone. Show insiders told Entertainment Weekly it was an ungrateful slap in the face to the very writers responsible for her Emmy win in the first place. Heigl later compounded the problem by going on The Late Show with David Letterman and complaining that the show's 17-hour workdays were cruel and mean. Then she criticized her film Knocked Up as sexist in a Vanity Fair interview, alienating director Judd Apatow and co-star Seth Rogen. The combination of all these public criticisms earned Heigl a reputation as difficult and ungrateful that followed her for over a decade. She was essentially blacklisted from major projects and struggled to find quality work. Years later, Heigl admitted she should have said nothing and kept her concerns private, acknowledging she ambushed the writers and that her approach wasn't very nice or fair. Shelley Long leaving Cheers. Shelley Long created one of television's most memorable characters as Diane Chambers on Cheers, a role that earned her an Emmy and made her a household name. The show was a massive hit, and her chemistry with co-star Ted Danson was electric. Then, after 5 seasons, Long decided to leave to pursue a film career. She explained that she wanted to spend more time with her family, but industry insiders knew she believed movie stardom was waiting for her. The network replaced her with Kirstie Alley, and Cheers continued successfully for 6 more seasons without Long. Meanwhile, Long's film career consisted mostly of forgettable movies that failed to capture the magic of her television work. She starred in films like Hello Again, Troop Beverly Hills, and The Brady Bunch movie, but none came close to matching the success or cultural impact of Cheers. Long attempted multiple comebacks over the years, including returning to television, but she never recaptured the lightning in a bottle she'd had as Diane. The irony wasn't lost on industry observers, who noted that Long left one of the most successful shows in television history at its peak, believing she would become a movie star, only to watch her co-stars continue thriving while her own career faded. She later claimed she enjoyed the time with her family, but the trajectory of her career suggests she made a catastrophic miscalculation about her prospects outside of Cheers. Gary Coleman's Downward Spiral. Gary Coleman was one of the most influential child actors of all time as Arnold Jackson on Different Strokes. The show made him famous, and his catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?" became part of the cultural lexicon. But Coleman's parents and management allegedly mishandled his finances, and by the time Different Strokes ended, he was facing years of legal battles and mounting financial problems. Instead of carefully managing his remaining opportunities, Coleman made increasingly poor decisions that destroyed what was left of his career and reputation. He sued his parents and his management company over his finances, filed for bankruptcy, and struggled to find consistent acting work. He took a job as a security guard at a shopping mall, which might have been an honorable way to make ends meet, except he got into legal trouble for punching a fan who asked for his autograph. He appeared in the circus that was the 2003 California gubernatorial recall election, making himself into a punchline. He did voice work in video games and appeared in the music video for John Cena's Bad Bad Man. But these were the kinds of desperate, low-paying gigs that highlighted how far he'd fallen. Coleman's life became a series of unfortunate decisions, legal troubles, and publicity stunts that turned him from a beloved child star into a tragic figure who couldn't escape the shadow of his past. Elizabeth Berkley's Showgirls disaster. Elizabeth Berkley played Jessie Spano, the smart and socially conscious character on Saved by the Bell, one of the most popular teen sitcoms of the early 1990s. When she left the show, she desperately wanted to shed her wholesome image and be taken seriously as an adult actress. So when director Paul Verhoeven offered her the lead role in Showgirls, an NC-17 rated drama about Las Vegas strippers, she jumped at the chance. The film was supposed to revolutionize adult cinema and prove that mainstream audiences would embrace sophisticated NC-17 content. Instead, Showgirls became one of the most notorious bombs of the 90s, earning 7 Razzie Awards including Worst Picture and Worst Actress for Berkeley. Critics savaged the film's terrible dialogue, ridiculous plot, and over-the-top performances. The girl who once objected to Bayside High's date auction was now starring in a movie featuring lengthy nude scenes and a pool scene that became infamous for all the wrong reasons. Berkeley's career never recovered from the disaster. She went from being a rising star with serious potential to becoming synonymous with one of Hollywood's biggest embarrassments. While Showgirls eventually achieved cult status years later, and Berkeley has since worked steadily in smaller roles, she never came close to the mainstream success she seemed destined for after Saved by the Bell. Her decision to make such a drastic departure from her image backfired spectacularly. Valerie Harper's Battle. That backfired. Valerie Harper won 4 Emmy Awards playing Rhoda Morgenstern on The Mary Tyler Moore Show and its spin-off Rhoda. When she got her own sitcom called Valerie in 1986, everything seemed perfect. But Harper got into a bitter contract dispute with the show's producers, demanding more money and creative control. The situation escalated until Harper was fired from her own show. The network didn't cancel the series, though. They simply wrote her character out by killing her off in a car accident and renamed it Valerie's Family and then The Hogan Family. Sandy Duncan was brought in as the aunt who moved in to help raise the kids, and the show continued for 3 more seasons without Harper. She sued the producers for wrongful termination, claiming they violated her contract, and eventually won a settlement reported to be over $1.4 million. But winning the lawsuit didn't restore her career. Being fired from a show that bore her name and watching it continue successfully without her sent a clear message to the industry that she was difficult to work with. Harper continued to act in smaller roles, including a memorable stint on The Office years later, but she never again achieved the level of success she had enjoyed on Rhoda or during the early seasons of Valerie. The contract battle might have been justified from a legal standpoint, but strategically it destroyed her position as a television leading lady. Dan Harmon's self-sabotage on Community. Dan Harmon created Community, a critically acclaimed sitcom with a devoted cult following. But his behavior on set became increasingly erratic and difficult. Harmon feuded publicly with cast member Chevy Chase, with their arguments sometimes happening in front of the entire cast and crew. He went on bizarre rants, drank heavily during production, and created a toxic work environment that made everyone miserable. His social media presence became a liability, with Harmon posting long drunken rants about the show and his personal life. After 3 seasons, Sony fired Harmon from his own show. The network brought in new showrunners for Season 4, which fans dubbed the gas leak year because of its noticeable decline in quality. Sony eventually rehired Harmon for Seasons 5 and 6 after realizing the show didn't work without him, but by then, much of the damage was done. The show never regained its momentum. Key cast members had left, and the later seasons felt like they were operating on borrowed time. Harmon later acknowledged his behavior had been unprofessional and that his drinking and inability to control his emotions had created unnecessary chaos. He'd built a brilliant show with a passionate fan base, then nearly destroyed it through self-sabotage that made him the architect of his own misery and the show's decline.